Tyrese Halliburton has come a long way since his humble beginnings in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, playing for both the Sacramento Kings and his current team, the Indiana Pacers, in a career that's put his distinct offensive style on display. In fact, it wouldn't be a stretch to call Tyrese one of the best defensive players in the league, at least in comparison to his relatively low salary of $5.7 million. You could say that other players have better offensive skills, but if we're talking about pure bang for buck, it's hard to deny his value. Tyrese is barely 24 after all, and if he's this good while he's just starting out, it's easy to imagine what he can achieve later on in his career. His NBA story begins in the 2020 draft when the Sacramento Kings selected him as their 12th pick. Prior to this, he'd already excelled at the game ever since his high school days, averaging 18 points in his junior year and becoming Fox Valley Association's Player of the Year while he was at it. After a 22.9 point per game average in his senior year, he started going to Iowa State, where he became the main point guard for the Cyclones and became the first player from that team to score a triple-double since 2016. With such a stunning performance behind him, it was only a matter of time before the NBA started to take notice of the up-and-coming Wisconsinite, and sure enough, Haliburton decided to leave college ball behind and announce his entry into the 2020 draft. The Kings scooped him up pretty quickly, and when he made his debut on December 23, 2020, he gave an impressive showing with 12 points, 4 assists, as well as a couple rebounds and a block for good measure. The decision to take him off the bench proved to be a good one for the Kings since they defeated the Denver Nuggets by just 2 points. So Tyrese's contribution definitely helped take them over the edge. However, he suffered an injury in his freshman season that put his burgeoning career in jeopardy. Basically, Tyrese ended up twisting his left knee during a game against the Mavs, and he spent the final 7 games of the year recovering. The biggest threat here was a tear in his ligament, but fortunately, an MRI revealed that all was well, and then Haliburton just needed a bit of R&R to get back to his best. Even though he'd missed over half a dozen games, he still managed to make it to number 3 in the Rookie of the Year voting for that season, along with getting named to the NBA All-Rookie First Team. That's a solid performance for someone that had only played at college level up until the previous year, and it showed that Tyrese had what it takes to make it in the big leagues. Of course, as great as he was with the Kings, his fate ultimately laid elsewhere. After locking a career best of 38 points against the 76ers, along with a personal best of 17 assists later on against Oklahoma City Thunder, Haliburton ended up moving to the Pacers in a mid-season trade. Buddy Hield and Tristan Thompson followed him to Indiana, with Domantas Sabonis and Justin Holiday and Jeremy Lamb offered in exchange, along with a second-round pick for 2023. That just goes to show how much attention Tyrese had gotten by that point, because a player of his stature required a perk to be offered in return, and the Pacers clearly thought he was worth it. The fact that he scored over 20 points in his first 3 games proved that their trust wasn't misplaced, although the 1 point loss to his former team must have stung a bit. Regardless of that, Tyrese was coming up in the ranks fast, and it quickly became apparent that the Pacers relied on him heavily. I mean, just take a look at what happened when he got benched for a couple of weeks in January 2023. Injuries to his elbow and knee meant that Tyrese was unable to play for the team, and the Pacers only won 1 of the 10 games they played in his absence. That clearly shows how central he is to the side, and the roaring comeback he made against the Lakers proves it further. With 26 points in that game, Tyrese showed that he hadn't missed a beat, so the next logical step was for him to get selected for the All-Star team. And wouldn't you know it, that is exactly what happened that year. Outside of the NBA, Tyrese had made a place for himself on the national team as well. He first played for the US at the Under-19 World Cup in Greece back in 2019, right before he joined the NBA. The team ended up winning the gold medal at the tournament, and Tyrese was named in the All-Star 5 after leading the tournament in assists per game. The Kings snapped him up shortly after, but he still had time to achieve great things with the national side, even while he was forging his legacy in the NBA. A great example of this is America's Olympic victory in 2020, defeating France by 4 points and securing the 16th gold medal for the country. A 4th place finish at the 2023 World Cup followed, which earned the US a place at the 2024 Olympics, where I'm sure Tyrese will continue his streak. He's been making waves on the national side and leading from the front with an all-around performance that shows an amazing level of basketball IQ far beyond his years. What's kind of scary is that Tyrese still hasn't hit his peak. I say it's scary because the kid's already done so much, but with each passing season, he levels up and turns into an even bigger juggernaut on the court. The 2023 to 2024 season is definitely continuing that trend, seeing Tyrese reach even greater heights in his race to the top. The Pacers have an offensive lineup that can put the fear of God into the most formidable of opponents, and Tyrese is a big part of that. Honestly, it's kind of funny to see people fawning over his high scoring rate because when he was first starting out, everyone seemed to think that he wasn't a high volume scorer. He's proven his critics wrong several times over, especially in the current season where he averaged nearly 25 points in the first 10 games. And I haven't even gotten to his assists yet, with the young player averaging around 12.5 per game. That's miles ahead of any other player in the NBA, with Trae Young coming in at a distant second with a 10.2 average. The last time the Pacers led the league in assists was all the way back in the 1976 and 1977 season, when they had just joined the NBA. Don Buse was the king of assists at that time, but it wasn't until Haliburton came along that the Pacers found someone to replace him. When you bring the scoring and assists average together, you have a player that's exceeding any expectations you might have had. Only 2 other players have managed to score 24 points and register 12 assists on average after their first 10 games in a season, namely Oscar Robertson and James Harden. Harden also currently holds the record for most assists per game after averaging 10.4 last year. If Tyrese keeps going at this rate, he's gonna beat that record without breaking a sweat. And while he's busy making plays for his teammates, he's aiming for the basket himself with impeccable accuracy, with 40% of his shots coming from beyond the arc. As of right now, Tyrese Halliburton has shown his mettle as an all-around player. He's improved in practically every stat in his brief stint in the NBA, and given how fast he's progressed, there's really no telling where he might go from there. His rookie contract is over now, and while he agreed to sign with the Pacers for another 5 years, it cost Indiana $250 million. Will they be able to afford another extension once the contract's done? We'll just have to wait and see, but at least they've secured a solid half a decade of Tyrese in his prime.